So after months and months and months of brain-scratching teasers and casting announcements and everything else, we finally got a chance to lay our eyeballs on the very first episode of American Horror Story Apocalypse from Ryan Murphy and Brad Falchuk for FX. And let me start off by saying I'm really looking forward to this. I'm very excited about it. I was a big fan of the Murder House season. I'm a big fan of the Coven season. And on top of that, this whole idea of getting them all together in one season, I'm really, really looking forward to it. But objectively, I'm going to apply my first episode rule to this review. And I will say that this was a very strong and promising start. Did we get a lot of the guilty pleasures we were expecting? No. But then again, we have 10 episodes. We need to stretch it out a little bit. There was a part of me that just wanted to see everybody and their mother appear. But again, we need to get a little background. We need to see what the setup's going to be. And that's really what we got in this episode. Ryan Murphy wasn't kidding. It begins at the end. I mean, we really see the overall around-the-world destruction of all the major cities being hit with ballistic missiles. And we find out that it is part of this group called the Cooperative, which is not a government, but made up of all these genius minds around the world. The Cooperative plays a major part in all this. I'm going to get into them in a second. But from there, we get into a series of outposts where rich people have essentially reserved their spot. I think they said it was like $100 million to reserve a spot. And then there are also people who, which I thought was funny, through one of those ancestry sites, registered their genetics and were picked by this group to be saved as, for I would assume, the future oncoming society. Now, the impression I'm getting with the outpost is that one of them was probably built upon Murder House, which is, I think, how we're going to start getting a lot of our characters. We already get one of them by the end of the episode, and I'll touch upon that in a second. But we have an overarching storyline, which involves the Cooperative, involves the end of the world. It starts getting into the idea of who essentially launched these missiles and what the overall arcing plan is. We have the purple and the gray setup that's going on with the different class societies in play. We have a number of things that are set up, but we're going to be elaborating upon. So I think it did an excellent job with that. The other thing, as you know, I always look for is, are you doing a good job in introducing us to characters? And as I said, we're not really looking forward to having the characters from Murder House and Coven introduced to us, as much as we'd love to see them. But we did get to read a number of characters, and I'm going to use my cheat sheet just so I can get them all up to speed. But I've grouped them out. First, we have Tim and Emily, who I believe are going to be, I think, our modern version of Adam and Eve in this post-apocalyptic Garden of Eden. And it's very interesting when you consider the serpent that ends up coming into their outpost by the end of the episode. But I think there's a nice chemistry between them. There's a budding romance. The idea of them, sharing a kiss to keep themselves sane over the 18-month time that they've been spending there with these people, with no chance of hope or rescue as other outposts are allegedly starting to fall. So we have our Adam and Eve couple. We have then Sarah Paulson's Venable and Kathy Bates' Mead, who are definitely absolutely not what they seem. They've set up this entire fancy system and structure and everything else, and lo and behold, and I think a very strong military connection there to how things were in Vietnam. This idea at the outposts, people really aren't watching what they're doing, and we know Meade is military, but she doesn't come across that way. They're coming across as more the Handmaid's Tale type structure and setup, which I thought was interesting, but you can't help but wonder what's going to happen when the Cooperative ends up finding out what they're doing out there, or if there's going to be anybody left by the time the Cooperative finds out what's going on out there. Then we have our privileged crew from the very beginning of the episode, Coco, Leslie Grossman, who I just want to say for the record, Leslie Grossman needs to be getting a lot more work. Not that I don't love her in American Horror Story, but she's just hysterical, and her Coco is just the right combination of just someone you laugh at and then you just want to strangle because she is so obnoxiously self-absorbed. I mean, look what she did to her personal assistant, Mallory. She had a chance to get her to be purple, and she made her gray. It's just that right there. If given a choice, she will always make it about her because she needs somebody essentially to take care of her. We have Evan Peters' hairdresser Gallant. We've got Billy Lord, as I mentioned, Mallory, and we also have Joan Collins as Gallant's grandmother, who just has some of the great lines. That scene where she just has no problem chomping down on the remainders of stew because, well, it was made nice and I'm surviving. I'm not going to mess around with these people. They have their rules, and they're the ones keeping me from essentially dying of cancer and radiation from the outside. So you can kind of respect Joan Collins' game there. So we have all of these players in play. We have all of these storylines in play, and of course, we do get our nice little introduction to, well, it is a crossover. So we have Cody Fern. In a brief instance, we get to meet his Michael Langdon. who we know is going to be the Antichrist, we know is going to be our segue introducing not just Murder House, but more importantly, bringing Jessica Lange back into the fold. But we see him talk about this new sanctuary that has enough items and stockpiles to keep everybody there for 10 years. Very curious to see what Michael Landon's going to want these people to do, and see what they have to do to make the cut, and what this sanctuary actually is like. And more importantly, and this I think ties into a teaser that the American Horror Story people on social media sent out, are we going to have Coven and our Murder House people, the non-Tate people, are we going to have them working together to go up against the Antichrist, or is it going to be different factions at war with one another? The fanboy in me wants to see Murder House and Coven working together against the bigger bad, but that's just the superhero fanboy in me. But overall, I got to say, American Horror Story, first episode of American Horror Story Apocalypse, the end was a very, very strong start. You have 9 episodes to go. I'm really looking forward to seeing some major faces returning next week.